Do you want to find peace or calm in any situation, regardless of the circumstances around you? If you do, stick around. On this episode of Go Reflect Yourself, we'll talk about some very simple, practical, brain-based ways to reduce stress and find peace and calm no matter what. Welcome to the Go Reflect Yourself podcast, bringing you real, practical, brain-based strategies to cultivate a life and business full of freedom and fulfillment, starting from the inside out. Working hard and staying busy will only get you so far. To truly become happy, content, and who we are meant to be, we have to move beyond physical capacities and begin to reflect from within. We have to change our thoughts and our mindset into our most powerful assets, transforming you to take inspired action so you can become a better version of yourself and have the life of your dreams.
You are stronger than you believe. You have greater powers than you know.
Welcome to this episode of Go Reflect Yourself. I'm so excited to have you here today. I just want to jump right in, actually. I was interviewed recently on another podcast, and I was very honored to be able to talk about mindfulness and meditation. And the question came up of really, what is mindfulness and meditation? And we started talking about the differences and the stereotypes and some of the things that have been happening in the world. And I just really wanted to talk about that with you here today. Because the reason for mindfulness, the reason for meditation is to find peace, calm, and clarity in any situation, to have harmony in your life, and to be able to have a productive, well-rounded life full of well-being and joy and happiness. But those things sound sometimes very off in the distance when we've got all this stress and anxiety and pressure upon us in everyday life. So the conversation went like this. Most times, mindfulness is explained as just being aware and having that present awareness of your surroundings, your thoughts, where you're at in this moment. And that's an okay definition of mindfulness. It's true. That's really what it is. But I started thinking about it a little bit, and I started thinking about the people who have mastered being able to remain calm and in control of their emotions. And if we look at brain scans and look at the differences of these people and how they react to anxiety before, during, and after stressful situations, compare their brain scans to people who suffer from anxiety, and I'll just say normal people who aren't expert meditators, the differences are vast in those brain scans. So the reason I bring that up is mindfulness to me is being able to handle any scenario and situation that's happening and be able to still remain connected and in control of you. And connected in control of your emotions and your thoughts. So I'll say that again, because I think it's an important understanding. Mindfulness is the ability, in my opinion, to be able to remain connected to you, to your mind, your body, what's going on. It's being able to handle all the stress, all of the stuff that happens. And I think about this all the time with my son. And if you've listened to any of my prior podcast, my poor son, I hope he doesn't listen to this someday. I feel like I pick on him a lot. He's 12 now. He'll be 13 actually really soon. And it's, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of all of these things in my head right now. Actually, I tend to trigger very quickly. My lack of being able to remain in control of my emotions is much quicker with him than anybody on the planet. And it just is. And I don't really apologize for that because it's just the way our dynamics have formed. But I've learned over the years to be more aware and learned really what's going on within me in situations and scenarios that triggers my emotions. And when he comes to me at certain things and maybe I snap at him or I immediately get angry or frustrated or whatever emotion I might have, I've really learned to understand what's going on with me before that interaction. 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with him. The way he approaches things, he is a very emotional person, and what he's you'll know what he's thinking or feeling because he'll tell you. And I admire that. I'm not quite that way. And it's a different way of processing emotions. But if I look at what was going on with me before that interaction, was I reading an email that I didn't like? Was I thinking about something? What really was going on in me? Usually your body will signal you first before your brain actually has time to catch up to understanding and really analyzing the situation. So mindfulness being the ability to remain connected in all situations, regardless. It's kind of like that complete calm, no matter that patient. I always think about that patient grandparent. Some grandparents are extremely patient. And if you think about how they handle people, kids, all the things that are thrown at them, often they have a very calm, dignified grace and ease about the way they kind of just let things bounce off of them. And that's a stereotype. Not all grandparents are like that, but that's just a mental image, maybe, perhaps, of this wise sage. But mindfulness, being able to handle all scenarios with peace, calm, and clarity, maybe it's not suppressing an emotion. It's just recognizing it. Because really, the reason we practice mindfulness and meditation, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, it's to be able to respond versus react. So back to me thinking about how I immediately get triggered and maybe that knee-jerk reaction to my son when he frustrates me or I get angry about something. Maybe that mindfulness, it's kind of, if I can visualize a bubble around me, it's being able to kind of how to have this outer body experience quickly to process, okay, my brain is signaling my body, there's something going on, I have an emotion to process, I feel stress, I feel frustration. It's not really about him, he just happens to be the target at this moment. Maybe instead of reacting to him in a way that I'm going to not like my reaction, maybe I need to take a minute. Maybe I need to take 3 breaths. Maybe I can just analyze this very, very quickly and process it. Then I can respond appropriately instead of in an angry fashion or in a way that I might regret, perhaps. So that's really the key here. And that's one very simple explanation or example. But if we think about all things that happen in our life and things that are thrown at us every day, we have bosses, we have colleagues, we have employees, we have friends, we have spouses, we have children, especially now with this work from home environment where we have all those things often at once. So how do we stay intact with who we are, control our emotions a little bit, and respond? And that's where mindfulness and meditation comes into play. So when I think about meditation, and I've probably said this before if you've listened to some of my earlier podcast, I used to think that meditation meant you had to be a bald white guy sitting on top of a mountain for 3 straight days to be able to achieve some Zen-like state of being. And There's nothing wrong with that. And there's wonderful things that happen when people go through that, but you don't have to. And actually, new neuroscience research shows small 2 to 3 minute mindful meditative states can actually be more effective than these long 20, 30, 40, 50 minute sits that often we think we have to. And meditation is a form of mindfulness. Meditation is a formal practice, a dedicated practice. And there's different ways, many, many different ways. And I will continue to talk about those in future episodes of this particular podcast. But you can meditate standing, sitting, lying down. The main thing is just to remain present. So posture is important to be able to access all of you, to connect your body and your mind, to be able to increase oxygen and blood flow to your brain, to be able to have the ability to connect and focus your nervous system, to be able to connect and focus. But meditation, often people get frustrated because if they start to sit in a meditation, and I like to sit in the traditional meditative position. For me, that's just how I like to meditate when I'm actually in a formal practice. But again, you don't have to do a formal practice every day. Because there are different ways to achieve that through mindfulness. But some people get frustrated because they think if they are meditating and their mind wanders, that they're doing it wrong, or that they start thinking about something else, or that they're not at this Zen euphoric state quickly. And that's okay. You don't have to. And oftentimes we're not going to achieve that Zen-like state that we think that it is. Meditation is about that dedicated practice, really just to start to retrain and to be able to have that awareness in that moment. So I like to think about thoughts during meditation. Thoughts are like waves on a beach. They come, you notice the wave, it comes and it touches your toes as you're standing on the beach, and the wave goes back out to sea. So that thought, when it touches you, you notice it. Okay, I'm having this thought. Okay, I caught myself. Now, back to my breath, back to a focus or an anchor, and I let it go back out to the ocean, back and forth. And it's okay not to have a thought. It's okay just to be. And that really helps. But when we have that awareness, okay, this wave, this water's touching my toes, I have this thought coming at me. When we have that awareness, what happens is it's called this meta-awareness. So that's like a muscle. That's like doing a rep at the gym. It's like doing a squat. That's a strengthening that awareness muscle in our brain, if you will, to catch ourselves, to catch what we're thinking. So I think about that as this kind of outer body experience. I think about that in Doctor Strange, and in the movie Doctor Strange, at one point he gets, often actually in that movie, gets pushed out into his astral body and he's kind of floating and looking at things going around. That's similar to what's happened in this meta-awareness phase. It's really just noticing. And then if you can just say, okay, maybe I'm frustrated. Maybe I notice I'm not meditating properly, or I've got these things to do. Okay, I notice my brain is thinking about my to-do list. Okay, I'm just going to let that go right now, and I'll come back to that later. That's really what that process is like. Now, there's days where I sit in this formal, dedicated meditation practice, and I may only get 5 minutes. And that's okay. Some days I may get 40 minutes, and that's okay too. But it's what I'm doing throughout the day that also supports that increase of muscle awareness. And those are the mindful moments. Those are being intentional during the day with these kind of impromptu type of things. So maybe take your phone, for example. Maybe every time you pick up your phone, that's a signal of just taking a breath. Maybe, because let's be honest, we pick up our phones probably 100 to some cases 300 times a day. So maybe if we pick up our phone and that's a reminder, okay, that's my signal to just take a breath. And what is my intention right now? My intention is I'm picking up my phone to do what? I'm picking up my phone to check my email. I'm picking up my phone to check my text message. Just to be aware of what that intention is in that moment. Mindfulness is something we can incorporate often, many times throughout an entire day. And once you start this practice, you can get better, and you're actually you're building resilience, you're retraining, you're kind of repackaging the way your neural pathways are connecting to be able to handle, like I said earlier, things that come at you. So I'm going to challenge you. 2 challenges. The first, a minute to arrive. When you start a meeting, when you start a conversation, before you respond to an email or before you respond to a text message, I'd like to challenge you, just take a breath. And then take another breath. And then ask yourself on the 3rd breath, what is most important right now? So maybe if I'm responding to an email that I don't like, maybe there's an email I received from a client who has a unhappiness about something. I don't know, make something up. But instead of, usually we get into this heightened state of needing to react, of quipping back, of needing to respond in a very quick manner. So maybe if I took 1 minute to arrive and I took 3 breaths and I asked myself, what's most important right now? Maybe as I'm writing this email to respond, what's most important is that I address the client's needs, not my own. Maybe the most important thing is not my ego, but making sure I empathize with where they're at. Or maybe it's to my intention, or what's most important in that moment is just simply to answer a question as quickly as possible, or to reassure, or whatever the reason might be. The idea behind that is to calm the body, to center the body, to connect your heart, your brain, your body, to connect everything together and say, okay, really, what is important right now? Because your body shows up. Your body is giving you clues all day, every day, even if you don't always realize it. And that's where the stress buildup really comes in. So the second challenge, the first one I just said, was 1 minute to arrive, just 3 breaths, just breathe, notice that you're breathing, and then what's most important right now. The second challenge is once an hour. Set a timer on your phone, set a mindfulness timer, put an appointment on your calendar every hour. Get up, stretch your body, yawn, stretch, and just notice an intention. First, be intentional. Maybe it's being intentional about yawning and stretching and getting up, moving your body, changing that physiology every hour, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're standing, move your body in a different way. And then maybe just go look in the sky for 30 seconds with no agenda whatsoever. Just a 30-second mental check out. That's it. Do that once an hour, especially when you're really in a stressful day, if you're back-to-back meetings or you've got to run between a meeting and then picking up kids, making lunch, making supper, whatever it might be. Give yourself that moment to disconnect and that 30-second, just daydream. That's it. Those are the two challenges I have for you to find peace, calm, and clarity and start building that resilience, retraining how you respond, because stress is going to happen. Triggers are going to come to us. Things are going to happen and our patterns get set. I have a lot of patterns and I admit it, but it's taken me a long time to really see them and understand them. But now that I know them, I can recognize what my body's doing and what my body's trying to tell me, because my brain's not going to react as quickly. My brain's not going to understand as quickly. It wants to react, but your body and the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, goes offline momentarily when your body first reacts to something. So that's why the breathing is important. But the more that we do these little things throughout the day, the more we start building kind of that, I don't want to say defense mechanism because that sounds a little negative, but it kind of is. It's kind of like that armor, that shield, but in a good way, because I still want you to connect to people. It's not about putting up an armor and people can't get in. It's about putting up a energetic field around you where you stay connected no matter what is happening. That's the key for mindfulness. You being able to stay connected to yourself, stay connected to your values, stay connected to your principles, to you. And we'll talk about this in another segment very soon, your intrinsic value. Jeff Kozatek, I can't remember what podcast number, 24 maybe? Actually, I just released that one. So if you're listening to this, Jeff's is right before here. I forgot. But he talks about intrinsic value, that a lot of times people get their value from external things. And that's so very, very, very true. So my point, when you connect the dots, when you're present, when you're able to remain you, your intrinsic value does not change depending upon the circumstances around you. You are you. That's the key to mindfulness. And doing these little things each day will help add to that, and it will help build your resilience, rebuild your ability to keep focused and to respond the way you want to. I hope that was helpful for you. If you want any help, any clarification, any way to see things differently, if you need a structured neuro-coaching session to take you through, to maybe get through some of those blocks that you might have, let me know. I'll be happy to show you how you can do that. And my final thought for you today is a practiced meditation is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to beat yourself up if you don't do a practice meditation every day. You can still get benefits through these other things that I just explained. Thank you so much for being here. Join me, heatherjcrider.com, hashtag HeatherJCrider, hashtag Go Reflect Yourself. You are amazing just the way you are, but you can be extraordinary when you connect and become and discover who you're meant to be. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Go Reflect Yourself. Please rate and review this episode, and if something moved you, please feel free to share. For more inspired action or to stay in touch, head on over to goreflectyourself.com or heatherjcrider.com. You can also take the growth mindset quiz and learn where your current growth mindset lies. Stay in touch on all social media at Heather J. Crider. Until next time, this is your host, Heather Crider, and I am challenging you to go reflect yourself so you can discover and become who you are meant to be.